This is MacPherson Angle.
Well, good evening and welcome to the program. Here's what's coming up on the MacPherson Angle. The Oxford Union held a debate this weekend about whether the West should be suspicious of Islam. And the funniest thing happened. The people arguing that suspicion was unnecessary immediately started giving everyone reason to be suspicious. I'll talk about that with Lucy Zelich and Michelle Stevenson. Plus, transgender actor Elliot Page argues that when it comes to trans issues, we should take our cues from chimpanzees.
Human beings are the only species that are, ridiculous enough to seem to have a huge problem with trans folks.
Yeah.
We'll unpack that one together. And Gina Reinhardt has threatened criminal and civil action against the ABC over that vile video they broadcast. But what laws might the ABC have broken? I'll talk to legal expert Chris Merritt later in the show. First up, though, by now you would have seen the extraordinary scenes from Ceuta as tens of thousands of Moroccans poured across the border into the Spanish city. Sorry, that's obviously not footage from Ceuta. You can tell because the zombies in World War Z actually meet resistance. Here's what happened at the weekend. Around 60,000 Moroccans flooded into Ceuta, a city whose permanent population is normally about 83,000. So imagine waking up Friday morning in a quiet coastal town of 83,000, and by Monday, it's effectively doubled in size due to illegal migrants. It's the kind of population growth Anthony Albanese lies awake in bed at night fantasising about. OK, Kylie's not that lucky. Elbo's already admitted he fantasises about her, but I don't doubt his second biggest turn-on is new arrivals.
Vemos a muchísimos niños, Sandra, cruzando esta frontera. Como decía, esta mañana se ha producido una...
I got to admit, I'm not sure what the local reporter was saying, but if she was reporting that thousands of vulnerable Moroccan women and children were arriving in Spain seeking nothing but to integrate and build a better life, would you believe her? Well, young people would believe it, even as their lying eyes told them a very different story. Check out this young Spanish woman enthusiastically welcoming the foreign invaders. Sorry, enthusiastically welcoming migrants who seek only to contribute to the rich tapestry of Spain's multicultural diversity. I wonder if that young lady expects to still be wearing those shorty shorts and that backless top when she's out and about 5 years from now with the modesty police patrolling her village. Speaking of which, long after our cheerful ambassador for multicultural optimism had gone home, the men, they were still arriving, but now with chants of Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar literally means Allah is greatest. And why wouldn't you think Allah was greater than the West when the West doesn't even believe itself worth defending? In the 8th century, Muslims invaded Spain carrying swords. These days, there's no need for swords because, well, Western border police are purely ornamental. The irony, of course, is that Spain had the best defence. But the FIFA World Cup ended a fortnight ago. Anyway, this isn't football, this is only the country. And so the Moroccan invaders, confident of success, dispensed with swords and took selfie sticks instead. OK, forgive me, I keep forgetting these aren't scenes of uncontrolled migration, they're scenes of cultural enrichment. Sure, some of the 60,000 Moroccans who arrived in Spain at the weekend did so with no money, no shoes, barely any clothes and no idea where they'd sleep, let alone how they would eat. But others, well, they came ready to contribute. Like this guy who hit the ground peddling, as they say. This guy was already prepared for his new life in Spain, where he'll no doubt make a meaningful contribution as a doctor or as an engineer, but most likely delivering Uber Eats.
El máquina de la semana. En bicicleta por el agua.
I'm honestly not sure if he's smart or if he's stupid. I mean, just steal a bike when you get to Spain. This guy did the math and figured that if they don't mind you invading the country, well, they're probably not too fazed about you invading their homes. Just on that, I met a guy at a pub in Mossman the other day who said he sympathised with the Moroccans. You can understand them wanting a better life, he told me. To which I replied, so if I broke into your home because, well, you had nicer stuff than me, would you call the police or would you understand me wanting a better life? The Ceuta locals weren't so understanding. Can't you just feel the cultural enrichment? Now, like I said, none of these 60,000 arrivals had money. Strangely enough, that didn't dampen their enthusiasm for shopping. Oh, invading is hungry work. Imagine their surprise to discover the grocery store was better protected than the country. None of what happened in Ceuta at the weekend should have been a surprise, not to anyone. At the start of the year, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez announced an amnesty for 500,000 illegals living illegally in Spain, which obviously sends a message.
Some say we've gone too far, that we're going against the current. But I would like to ask you, when did recognizing rights become something radical? When did empathy become something exceptional? Spain is above all a welcoming country, and this is the path we choose.
So he advertised to everyone that his country was open, and at the weekend, everyone showed up. But have a listen to Pedro Sanchez just a few months ago talking about the need for digital security.
Spain will ban access to social media for minors under the age of 16. Platforms will be required to implement effective age verification systems, not just checkboxes, but real barriers that work.
So barriers at the national border? But we'll make sure we have real barriers when it comes to social media. This part made me laugh.
We will defend our digital sovereignty against any form of foreign coercion.
The lefty Spanish government will let national sovereignty go to the dogs, but is intent on defending digital sovereignty. Now, why would that be? Well, the European Union Commission President belled the cat when she tweeted on Friday, "The images coming from Ceuta are unacceptable. We cannot allow anyone to come to our union without abiding by our rules. Dangerous crossings must stop immediately." The images coming out of Ceuta are unacceptable. It's telling, isn't it? Let's hope the Spanish government can erect strong barriers and defend their digital sovereignty so those unacceptable images are not widely viewed, lest people realise their country is being destroyed. Oh, I almost forgot. The Spanish PM addressing the nation the other night reminded the public that diversity is our strength. Come on, it wouldn't be an invasion if he didn't say that.
Yo creo que esa también, su diversidad es uno de sus principales atractivos y también de sus fortalezas.
It's weird, you know. I went to Spain some years ago and I didn't go for the diversity. I went to experience Spanish culture and to get to know Spanish people. Anyway, as the Prime Minister was imploring the locals in Ceuta to remember that diversity was a strength, here's some of that diversity doing its very best work. In the meantime, the Spanish police finally started swinging their batons against the crowd on the streets of Ceuta. Unfortunately, police didn't attack the invaders, they attacked the locals who were protesting against the invaders, having forgotten that diversity was their strength.
Oye, oye, esto no es más gente española. La gente española. ¡Gente española! ¡La gente española!
He's a Spaniard, he's a Spaniard. And I guess that's why he was beaten. A Spaniard in Spain isn't diverse. Beat him. So 60,000 foreign invaders come and there's almost no resistance. But when locals protest the chaos, well, the batons come out immediately. Fortunately, here in Australia, we're still at the name-calling stage. Now, to be fair, it's not like the Spanish Prime Minister didn't have a plan at all.
Hemos solicitado a la empresa pública Sasemar, también en colaboración con la Armada y, por supuesto, también con la Guardia Civil, el despliegue de boyas en el Espigón, entre otras cosas, para dar cumplimiento a la sentencia del Tribunal Supremo y, al menos, crear una barrera de contención, una barrera física, en términos al menos.
Boys, his plan to stop tens of thousands of illegals making the short swim from Morocco to the Spanish city is boys. I mean, did the boys explode? Are these boys filled with movement-activated laser beams? No, they're just normal, floating, gently bobbing, passive boys. I liked how the Prime Minister said these boys would create a barrier, quote-unquote, at least in visual terms, he said. Talk about a metaphor for how the West is governed. Problems are never fixed, but our political class are all over the visuals. Well, the biggest movie at the cinema right now is The Odyssey, and it's pretty good, though I'm not sure any movie needs to be 3 hours long. The movie was mired in controversy when director Christopher Nolan chose to cast transgender actor Elliot Page to play a man. Page was appearing on various podcasts this week promoting the film and the idea that biologists have lied to us by insisting that sex and gender are binary.
I feel like as trans people, we're just constantly being gaslit by people, and it's baffling.
Elliot Page is a biological woman who underwent what they call top surgery. Her breasts were removed so as to make her chest more like a man's, and now she insists she's a man. I don't mean any disrespect to Elliot Page, but in my opinion, I don't think she's the one who's being gaslit here. And then there was this.
Human beings are the only species that are, ridiculous enough to seem to have a huge problem with trans folks.
Yeah.
Human beings are also the only species that don't poop in public, preferring instead to have private spaces for males and for females. Hence the problem many humans have with trans folk who want to use the opposite sex's bathrooms. Human beings are also the only species who play organised competitive sport. If chimpanzees played soccer, and if Caesar wanted to join the female team, well, there might be an issue. Speaking of chimpanzees...
And the researcher who, has studied these chimpanzees for a long time, he said there's always been like one or two in different, groups of chimpanzees that are, genderqueer and what have you. And he said that not once has he ever seen them be treated any differently, just like tolerated any less. And he was like, the only species that seems to do that is human beings. And that also really, really stuck with me.
A couple of things. Chimpanzees can't be transgender because being trans requires a human sense of self-identity as well as an understanding of gender. My body says I'm Caesar, but my inner self feels like Cornelia is not a line you'll hear on Planet of the Apes. But if we're going to look to chimpanzees as moral teachers, well, maybe we should examine the complete curriculum. What Elliot Page forgot to mention is that chimpanzees won't hesitate to kill a rival's offspring. They've been observed killing and eating other chimpanzees, and male chimps regularly use violence and control in order to have their way with the ladies. I'm just saying. The Christian West used to believe we were created in the image of God, and so we looked up for our cues. The secular West has wiped God from the horizon, and so now there's nowhere left to look except down. So instead of looking up and asking, what does it mean to be human, we increasingly look down and ask, wonder what the monkeys are doing. You tell me, how's that working out? Well, government frontbencher Andrew Charlton is widely tipped to be Australia's next treasurer. Some even whisper he could one day be PM. And you can understand the appeal. He's polished, he's articulate, he presents well, although, to be fair, in the current Labor caucus, the bar for looking prime ministerial is not exactly high.
We're at rapid fire questions now. Every guest gets asked these. Shag, marry, date. Kylie Minogue, Nicole Kidman or Rhonda Birchmore?
I've just got married. I'm only 6 months in.
But if it goes tits up, let's just pretend.
Oh, Kylie, clearly.
You'd marry Kylie and shag her and date her?
All of the above.
All right, it's a triple.
She's terrific.
All right, that's fair.
But back to Andrew Charlton. Long before he became Anthony Albanese's cabinet secretary, Charlton wrote a book called Ozonomics. Now, the promise of the book was to look behind the political smokescreen to reveal just how much of the rhetoric we should believe. After reading some of Charlton's arguments, you might wonder whether the biggest smokescreen was hiding behind the covers of his book. Because the book doesn't just criticise Liberal politicians for allegedly damaging the economy. No. Charlton saves some of his sharpest criticism for an even more dangerous group. Older Australians who had the audacity to buy investment properties, or as he describes them, wannabe real estate moguls who were involved in pulling a collective scam on the next generation. You see, according to Charlton, the greatest Australian crime wasn't government policy, it wasn't decades of restrictive planning laws, and it wasn't failing to build enough homes. It was apparently your mum and dad buying an investment property and hoping it would increase in value. Here's what Charlton wrote, and I quote, "The boomer's trick has been an adaptation of an old stock market scam called front running." He explained, it works like this. The scammer realises that someone else wants to buy some shares, so he or she jumps in before their rival, snapping up all the available stock, pushing up the price, and then reselling it later at a larger profit to the hapless buyer. It's a simple way to make a lot of money at someone else's expense. Now, perhaps someone should explain to Charlton that this thing called buying something and hoping it goes up in value is generally known as investing. It's not a scam, it's how markets work. It's also how millions of Australians plan for retirement. By the way, someone should also organise a meeting between maybe your grandparents and Jim Chalmers so your grandparents can discuss the mysterious concept called supply and demand, because they understand it. I'm not sure that Labor do. According to Andrew Charlton's worldview, the real villain is your nana, who bought an investment property back in 1998. Or as he describes it, she was plotting her evil property empire. Move over Wall Street criminals, here comes Grandma from Wagga. It's a remarkably convenient theory, isn't it? If older Australians are the villains, then incompetent governments get to play the victim. But here's where things get interesting. While Charlton criticised older Australians for benefiting from rising property values, the Daily Telegraph reported he himself had accumulated a substantial property portfolio, 5 houses in all, with a total value of $42 million. So when ordinary Australians invest in property, that's greed. But when Labor politicians invest in property, well, that's good financial planning. This is why critics use the term champagne socialist, someone who champions socialism when discussing the nation's finances and capitalism when discussing his own. A Labor politician with a $42 million property portfolio blaming mum and dad investors for the property crisis? Champagne taste meets beer logic. Well, Pauline Hanson has spent the past 30 years being the political equivalent of a smoke alarm. She's been exceptionally good at detecting that the house is on fire, less impressive maybe when asked whether she has a blueprint for rebuilding the kitchen. The One Nation leader has sounded the alarm on immigration, housing pressure, political correctness, government waste, and a sense that the people running the country are increasingly disconnected from the people living in it. The problem has never been finding out what Pauline Hanson thinks is wrong. She's never been shy about that. The problem has been finding out what she'd actually do if she was ever given the keys to the joint. Politics isn't just the art of pointing at the flames. Eventually someone's got to, borrow a phrasing from Scott Morrison, hold a hose and point the hose in the right direction and then provide a blueprint for restoration. So Australians know they like Pauline Hanson. They like her because she speaks bluntly. And they like that because, unlike coalition leaders, she doesn't need to consult a focus group, 3 media advisors and a diversity expert before speaking because they're worried about accidentally offending a houseplant. But ask those same One Nation supporters what Hanson's plan is beyond identifying problems, and the answer becomes less certain, and therein lies the challenge for One Nation. Because as the Bible says, man does not live by protest alone, or bread, or something like that. My point is that anger might get attention, and Hanson certainly has that, but governing requires a plan. Eventually, voters need to know not just who understands their concerns, but who has the practical ideas to address them. Have a listen to Liberal Deputy Leader Jane Hume on the ABC this morning and her description of One Nation.
At the next election, Australians will have a genuine choice between a terrible Labor government that has seen their standard of living go backwards so far and so fast, or One Nation that has no plans, that simply has slogans. A credible alternative is a Liberal National Coalition led by Angus Taylor.
A little bit rich, I thought, coming from the Libs, who only a year ago had declared that every policy position was up for review and then spent months conducting internal focus groups to finally work out what they believed. Pauline Hanson's hour-long Q&A session on Wednesday with my News24 colleague Paul Murray, I thought was significant. It seemed to me Hanson has finally begun the essential move from opposition to proposal, from explaining why the House is on fire to outlining her strategy for dousing the flames. She took the opportunity to sketch out what the first 100 days of a One Nation government might look like. And it didn't look too bad. Within 3 months of winning power, she'd begin the process of cutting immigration, overhauling the NDIS, scrapping net zero policies and climate change departments, addressing the high cost of childcare, taking better care of the elderly, and challenging some of the cultural stupidity that's become embedded in our public institutions. Welcome to country. She's looking at you. Now, not every idea will convince every voter, and not every proposal will survive the brutal test of implementation. That's true of every political platform. But credit where credit's due, her 100-day agenda was a step in the right direction. And maybe it's helping, because the latest Redbridge poll published this evening has One Nation's primary vote up 2 points to 31%, ahead of Labor, who were down 1 on 29%. The Coalition have recovered 4 points to be on 22. Joining me now is One Nation Senator Sean Bell. Sean, thanks so much for coming on the program. What do you think? Did I get all of that about right?
Oh, James, look, I think you've done a great job. I mean, and that's the beauty of what Senator Hanson's been doing, is she's been taking hard questions from audiences. She was on Sky, she did National Press Club. But this is the important thing to realise, is that these ideas that Senator Hanson's put forward, these policies, these plans, they're not new. Senator Hanson has been speaking about these issues for decades. As Senator Hanson has been talking about scrapping net zero for a decade. She's been talking about ending mass migration for 30 years. And it's ironic to hear other parties, very negatively attack and criticise, because all it's doing is drawing more attention to us, causing people to go onto our website, to go and watch Senator Hanson, and to see, through their negativity, our hopeful vision for positive change. We believe that you scrap, as you spoke about before, some people in the Labor Party could have a lesson in economics, because the free market is a powerful tool. And if you just get out of the way, you scrap net zero, energy is provided by standing on its own 2 feet, not through government subsidies, you bring down the cost of electricity, you bring down the cost of living. You're able to get people more affordable groceries. The daily shop or the weekly shop stops becoming a multi-$100 nightmare and goes back to something more like people remember. And this is what Senator Hanson has been doing for many years.
All right, Sean, imagine I'm a Victorian who, I like Pauline Hanson, I like what she stands for. There's just one problem. It's hard to vote for a party that appears to be campaigning from behind a witness protection program. There's no state leader, there's no information on who the One Nation candidates are, and there's no Victoria-specific policies that I've been able to find. Polling opens in 108 days. So if I'm serious about changing the government in Victoria, I'm voting for the Liberals and Jess Wilson.
Well, I've got good news for you, mate. Tomorrow, Senator Hanson at 11 o'clock will be in Melbourne, where she will be announcing upper house candidates and the party leader. Now, One Nation is ready to deliver change you can trust in Victoria. One Nation is ready to defeat a very bad Labor government, one itself that's just toppled the leader and now appears to be campaigning against itself. So tomorrow, people have been asking for it. People said, where is your leader? Where are your candidates? Well, tomorrow you will get to meet them for the first time. Now, not all of them. We will be running in every single seat, and we're not going to announce all the candidates tomorrow, but you'll be getting 11 o'clock, your first introduction to the party leader and a number of our upper house candidates, and I think you're really going to impress people.
OK, well, there you go. Pauline Hanson said during the week that she hoped it would be announced by Friday, but you're promising us we'll have all the information 11 o'clock tomorrow.
Yes, I am, mate. And it's... Here's the thing. Other parties... One Nation is never going to do things at other parties' timeframes. We are here to defeat bad Labor governments. The worst thing you can do is listen to the advice of someone who's seeking to defeat you or destroy you. One Nation is doing things in a responsible way, in a timely manner. We're vetting, we're going through checks and balances. We've gone through thousands of applications in Victoria. The youngest person applying, I believe, was 19. The oldest was in their 90s. We've had applications from everyday Australians, nurses, lawyers, police officers, farmers, because people in Victoria are desperate for change. They are desperate for change.
Sean, I don't want to frighten you, but when you say that One Nation is doing things in an orderly way, you sound a little bit like Anthony Albanese saying we're an orderly and responsible government. But I get what you mean. I appreciate you coming on the program tonight. And 11 o'clock tomorrow, we'll all be watching News24 to see what Pauline Hanson says about the Victorian One Nation leadership. All right, coming up next, the amazing Oxford Union debate on Islam that has those arguing there's no reason for suspicion, giving everyone reason for suspicion. And Boy George splits with his record label manager after the manager refused to release his song in support of Jews. Michelle Stevenson and Lucy Zelich will join me after this. The Oxford Debating Union met at the weekend to debate whether or not the West should be suspicious of Islam. And the remarkable thing about this debate is that the side arguing, no, the West should not be suspicious of Islam, did seem to make a very good case for the affirmative. Have a listen to student debater and moderate Muslim Aisha Khan gleefully boasting that if it wasn't for the generosity and protection of Muslims on the Oxford Committee, one of her opponents would probably not make it home from the debate alive.
Stephen Yaxley Lennon, known to his hooligans as Tommy Robinson. Stephen, there is a crowd outside rioting against you tonight, and without the protection and generosity of a Muslim Palestinian president and a mostly South Asian executive committee, you would be quite literally cooked.
Hey, you've got no need to be suspicious of Muslims because, well, as long as you're in our good graces, we'll make sure the pro-Muslim mob out the front don't lynch you. It's a hell of an argument and the biggest own goal I've seen, including at the World Cup. And then there was this fascinating drama. One of the debaters for the affirmative, arguing the West should be suspicious of Islam, advised he would be showing a cartoon of Muhammad during his speech.
The West should resist Islam in the strongest terms on free speech grounds alone. So here we are with this cartoon.
Well, there was an audible gasp from everyone in the room. And then, faster than you can say Charlie Hebdo, people began running interference. Muslims on the negative team argued there was no need to test their commitment to free speech by showing the cartoon. They've already proved their commitment to free speech by holding the debate in the first place.
Is it not enough that I, as a Muslim president, have invited you to this chamber to give your arguments? Is that not enough justification and evidence for you to believe that we do believe in free speech? I would not become the president of a free speech society if not for that.
Thank you, Al.
And then members of the audience began interjecting, urging the debate chair to discover some rule or regulation that would prevent the cartoon from being shown.
May I finish? Excuse me.
Point of order having been raised, I will hear the ex-librarian.
It's a long time since I've been in this chamber and knew the rules off by heart. But in the House of Commons, and we model ourselves on the House of Commons, props are not allowed. I wonder whether the rule on props is the same in the Oxford Union.
So by now you're getting the idea. The very people insisting the West has no need to be suspicious of Islam were desperate to prevent a cartoon of Muhammad from being shown in public. Eventually, however, the debate chair ruled the cartoon could be displayed.
So it is in that spirit that I will not submit that I show you this as an Englishman who believes in free speech. I will not submit. I will not bow down.
Whew, turns out the cartoon wasn't of Muhammad at all. The affirmative side weren't that silly. Everyone in the room, not least those arguing there was no need to be suspicious of Islam, breathed a huge sigh of relief. But the point had been well and truly made. Joining me now is my panel, broadcaster Lucy Zelich and Waverley councillor Michelle Stevenson. Michelle, should Oxford pick different topics to debate?
No, look, I think it was incredible that they did debate this, and I think it's really important that we do allow these kinds of debates. I think too many people are silenced when it comes to having conversations about religion, about Islam in particular, and I think we will never gain an understanding of what people stand for or the reason why they stand for it unless we have this idea of free speech and debate. So, look, I applaud that it went ahead, and I do think that there were some own goals kicked.
Lucy, Michelle says, and I agree with her, we need to have these discussions. Are we having these discussions?
I don't think we're having these discussions enough, to be quite frank with you. And I think it's very important to draw a distinction between having a debate and a discussion versus mocking, right? So in the last couple of weeks alone, I'm a woman, it's no secret, of deep Christian faith, and we've had to confront some serious issues here in New South Wales with the opening and the open mocking of Christianity here with a place called the Unholy, then changed to Divine Playhouse. Now, it's been fascinating for me to watch a movement that has historically been the first to try and censor free speech or any debate or any discussion on anything of left-leaning ideology now start to invoke these decries of freedom of expression and free speech. And it falls under the guise of satire. And we've seen that argument leveraged against Gina Rinehart in this situation. Don't mock someone for their faith. Don't ridicule them for their faith. But do we absolutely have every right in the context of what's going on globally right now, particularly here in Australia, what we've seen in the aftermath of the Bondi massacre, to question what's occurring within the remit of Islam and how it's being used by fundamentalists to totally bastardise the religion in their name? Absolutely, we have every right. Just as Christians and Catholics all around the world had every right to condemn those moving throughout Catholic churches and who were the architects of awful, awful child sex abuse. So we rightly, within that community, condemned what was going on, and what we need to see is the same level of uprising from within the Muslim community to condemn the fundamentalists who are bringing such shame to their religion.
Can I just pick you up on one point? I'm not sure how you feel about this, Michelle, but I'm a Christian, but I think people should have the right to mock and ridicule Christianity because Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, they're ideas.
They are.
You should be allowed to mock and ridicule ideas and say you think it's a stupid idea. You should be free to do that.
Absolutely. And I am not anyone who has any faith at all. I'm pretty agnostic. So I kind of approach it from a different kind of perspective. And I do think that we should be allowed to say and do what we want. It's up to you. If you choose to be offended, that is your choice. Someone does not offend you. You choose to be offended. I think too many people nowadays are choosing to be offended.
Yeah, really good point. All right, there's an interesting court case scheduled in a Sydney local court where a woman is accused of making allegedly anti-Semitic remarks at a netball game. It's alleged the woman said, "Effing Jews, they should all be eradicated." Now, a number of people present when the comments were allegedly made have been called to give evidence, among them some Jewish Australians. Here's what's interesting. The prosecution has asked the court, and the court has agreed, that the names of the Jewish witnesses be suppressed for 2 years. They can be cross-examined in court, but the names of the witnesses can't be published. Judge Michael Barco said it was the first time in his 40 years in the criminal justice system that he was being asked to place a suppression or non-publication order over a group of people because of their religion or their culture. Michelle, I think this is an incredible development. What does it say about the state of our country?
Well, it says a lot. Look, I'm a councillor who represents Bondi Ward, which in Waverley, which is, a high Jewish population. The terror attacks happened on our doorstep. We have seen the rise in anti-Semitism grow exponentially since October 7. What has happened and what we saw with the Royal Commission is a lot of people who were witnesses or who gave testimony were actually doxed, and they were heavily trolled, and they feared for their safety. So I do understand where this is coming from, because at the end of the day, a lot of people, particularly of Jewish faith, who are standing up and saying this isn't good enough, we are fearing for our lives, are being doxed and are being treated abhorrently. And in the context of what happened in Bondi on my doorstep, I can understand the fear here. Yeah, and
we've heard in the Royal Commission that Jews are being, hounded, who've given evidence there, as you said. Very quickly, Boy George announced yesterday he'd split from the manager of his record label after the manager said he wanted nothing to do with Boy George's new song in support of Jews. If you haven't heard it, here's a bit. Boy George wrote on social media yesterday, "I wanted to release We Will Dance Again, but my manager was unequivocal and said, I want nothing to do with this song. And I responded, OK, we're done. When someone is gutless, it really does not hurt to say goodbye. My faith in humanity will not diminish and the truth will always win. I will release it." Lucy, Boy George fan?
Oh, God. I mean, I was born in 1986, so I'm not a woman who is shy to admit her age, 40 in November. But I will say, growing up and listening to his music, it was the sound of my childhood. My sister loved him, had posters of him. And what I will say is I find it really sad that a man who has openly said he has Jewish friends, he has done since he was, say, 15 or 16, he commented, and has worn the Star of David from very early on in his career, said that this is something that is really personal to me. And he's standing up for the people that he loves. He also went on to say it doesn't mean that you can't show compassion towards Palestinians. So I hate how divided we all are over this. I hate that if you express support for one, it means you're cancelled by the other. It's really hurtful, and too many people have been dragged into these conflicts who have no responsibility or control over what their governments are doing, and it is awful to see a society so riddled with such division.
So, like you, I listened to Culture Club growing up, and
I'm not singing. Sorry.
I didn't really know what to think of Boy George as a young kid. I'm like, I didn't know what to make of him, but I would never have imagined back then, I don't think anyone would have, that his most rebellious act was not back then, but would be in 2026. Singing a song in support of Jews.
But I think it was always in his DNA, right? He was always standing up and being authentic to who he is. And I think his support for Israel is authentically who he is. And, you've got to really appreciate an artist who puts himself out there in that way. That would not have been an easy decision because he knows full well what the wrath looks like, and he did it anyway. And I say kudos to him.
He's also had to step out of his role in Jesus Christ Superstar as well. Because of all of this, because they said that it would just be too much of a distraction.
But good on him for standing up for something he believed in.
Yeah, well, if we had a few more Boy Georges maybe in our federal government, maybe the New South Wales state government, we wouldn't have had some of the rubbish that we've seen over the last couple of years, and just maybe it would be a different world. The kind of world where, a Jewish person could give evidence in a court without having to have their name suppressed for fear of reprisals. Unbelievable. Thank you to you both. Always a joy having you on the show, and especially having you sing on the show, Lucy.
Never again, I promise. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I'll come prepared next week.
Appreciate that. All right, coming up in just a moment, Gina Reinhardt has threatened legal action against the ABC over that awful segment they broadcast, imagining her being sexually assaulted. Now, I think we all know it was vile, but what laws might the ABC have broken? Legal expert Chris Merritt will join me after this. Swimming legend Dawn Fraser has once again dived headfirst into the political pool, unleashing a blistering attack on the Prime Minister. The four-time Olympic gold medalist has described Anthony Albanese as vile and as an imbecile. And in the grand tradition of Australian bluntness, those are the polite words. Fraser's fury was sparked by the ABC broadcasting a segment featuring a graphic depiction of an imagined sexual assault on Gina Rinehart, one of Australia's most prominent business figures and a long-time supporter of Australian swimming. Now, Dawn Fraser, who counts Rinehart as a friend, took to Facebook to vent her anger at both the broadcaster and the Prime Minister. She wrote, "I'm sick to my stomach to think we have a government-funded network, ABC, showing vile pieces to air about one of Australia's greatest supporters, Gina Rinehart, and our vile Prime Minister has not come out and condemned the content. You're a spineless imbecile, Albanese, and you get more disgusting as the days go on. To let this vile crap on ABC go to air and not come out and say anything against it shows the insipid little degenerate you are." Well, it's not the first time the 88-year-old Olympic champion has taken aim at the Prime Minister. In the aftermath of the Bondi terror attack, Fraser publicly accused Albanese of being weak when he resisted calls for a royal commission. Albanese later announced a royal commission in a backflip worthy of an Olympic gold medal. But back to that disgraceful comment on the ABC. The segment Labor MPs have refused to condemn and that the national broadcaster has refused to remove from its platforms or even apologise for. Rinehart has now launched legal action against the ABC, and I'm keen to understand what that legal action might look like and the consequences. So to help me unpack it, I'm joined by legal affairs contributor at The Australian, Chris Merritt. Chris, talk me through this. She's written a legal letter, or through Hancock Business has gone to the ABC with a legal letter. That legal letter you're explaining to me is deliberately vague so they can leave their options open. But what options might Gina Rinehart be considering when it comes to the ABC?
Well, look, first up, this is confounding. We've had years of campaigns against violence against women, and the ABC's response to this is, oh, it's a joke. Well, I'm afraid it's not a joke, and if it gets to the defamation courts, that will be made blindingly obvious. Rinehart's really got three options: the internal ABC Ombudsman and the associated ACMA, Australian Communications and Media Authority, complaint mechanism. All that will lead to is a recommendation. It'll go back to the people responsible for the program to do with what they want. The real option is in the courts. Defamation, there's a precedent in 2015 which lines up beautifully with what has happened at the ABC. Senator Sarah Hanson-Young won against Zoo magazine when Zoo magazine superimposed her head on top of a model wearing very little. The argument from Zoo magazine is, oh, it was facetious and a joke and satire. Well, they lost. If that is not enough, there's also the possibility of criminal proceedings. If the AFP and the DPP, Commonwealth DPP, don't do anything, there's a provision in the Commonwealth Criminal Code against using a carriage service to harass or cause offence. And that can be done in a private prosecution capacity. So those are the options. Now, they're not all straightforward. The defamation option seems to be the strongest. I think what will probably happen is she'll let the ABC run the course of its internal inquiry if she gets the outcome she wants. And remember, what she wants, it's not unreasonable. She wants an apology, she wants the material taken down, and she wants a thorough inquiry to find out how did this happen. Now, if the ABC doesn't provide her with that remedy, the law of defamation and the process of discovery will effectively give her the ability to do it herself. She'll be able to discover how this happened and who was involved. So that's where we stand.
Just really quickly, her legal letter is not just to the ABC as an organisation, but specifically to the chair, to other executives in the ABC. How worried would they be right now?
Look, I would be worried if it was me. On the facts, this case is not going to favour the ABC. It's going to be embarrassing. It'll pull their their processes before the public eye, and they've clearly got questions they need to answer. So I think if I was the ABC, I'd wanted to clear the decks as soon as possible.
Chris Merritt, I appreciate you coming on the program to explain that. Thanks so much. All right, still to come, the Church of England is advertising for a new policy advisor, but something about the ad struck me as incredibly odd. That's next. Andy Burnham has been UK Prime Minister for 2 weeks, and during those 2 weeks, he's made 35 TikTok videos. 35! Maybe he's brilliant at politics. Maybe Burnham understands in 2026 no one reads policy papers. Everyone has the attention of a goldfish, and the only way to reach voters is via a 20-second social media clip. Maybe he's a brilliant Polly, or maybe he's just obsessed with celebrity and is turning Number 10 into a content gallery. Joining me right now is GB News host Alex Armstrong. Alex, what is going on here? Is this smart politics from Burnham, or is there something else happening?
Well, to be honest with you, James, I think this is the problem with British politics now. We've gone from the robot overlord of Keir Starmer, who had zero personality, to a TikTok prime minister who thinks by indulging in all of his weird personality traits that all of a sudden the British public are going to love him. And frankly, it seems to be paying off, sadly. I think that's the state we're in. People look at this guy and go, oh, he's relatable. Look, he holds up a piece of bread and talks about how everyone calls it something different up and down our country. It's really quite sad. That's my take on it all. This is where British politics has got us to. He's hiring over 30 staff in Number 10 North to do his social media campaigns for him. He realises that Nigel Farage and other people have done well on this, but they've done well by speaking the truth, not by being an influencer. And that's the big difference. It's gonna wear thin really, really quickly. It's already bored me to death, I'll tell you that for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of them are pretty cringe, though. As you said, it's helping him in the polls. And I suppose he's using modern mediums to get his message across. I guess the danger for him and politicians like him is that the algorithm doesn't care whether inflation's coming down and houses are being built. So it could give you a false sense of connection with the electorate, couldn't it?
Absolutely. And a lot of the electorate here, particularly it's a much older demographic, most of our electorate are pensioners, therefore they're not on TikTok. So this is just really trying to garner the support of young people who are commenting on TikTok. And as you said, they don't care about food inflation and stuff like that, young people. They're living at home with their parents who buy all the food. They're the ones who want to see real policies. And we've seen nothing from this guy. We don't even have a manifesto out yet, and we don't know what his chancellor's going to be pledging. So we're having to sit in this weird limbo period as if the bloke's won a general election without a mandate. It's totally bizarre.
Fortunately, Alex, we've got the TikTok videos, so that'll have to suffice for the moment. Hey, we've only got about a minute left, but I wanted to ask you, if your TV career ever fails, you might want to apply for a job with the Church of England. They're advertising for a policy advisor. The pay is pretty good, but I'm not sure, Alex, whether you're a Christian or not. Here's the good news, though. The ad says we welcome people of all faiths and no faith. We want to encourage applications from a diverse group of people who share our values, even if you've never thought about working for us before. Does that not strike you as odd, the Church of England advising for a policy advisor? But if you're a person of no faith, that's fine. We want you to apply anyway.
I don't get it. I'm a Christian myself, James, and you surely want to see people of the Christian faith writing policies and being part of the Church of England that understand it deeply, that understand its heritage, understand our religion. And unfortunately, this is the road the Church of England is going down. It's just becoming more and more woke, left on left on left. I don't know what kind of religion they want to foster, this sort of multi-faith, weird religion that perhaps King Charles is getting himself into lately as well. It's all a bit weird.
It is all a bit weird, and you're right. King Charles is in the thick of it. Alex, always a great joy to talk. Thanks for joining me on the program. And thanks to you at home for tuning into the MacPherson Angle. Really appreciate it. Stick around to come up right now. It's Paul Murray. Good night.